I'm back in the Slimming World kitchen. I'm Sal Henley and we are going to cook up a lovely recipe of a sausage, chips and dippy egg bake. I know you're thinking those three things together make the perfect meal. They really do, and it's a one-pot dish. It's really simple. You just need 1 kilo of floury potatoes. I've peeled them, and the type of potato I would use is either a Maris Piper, a King Edward or a Desiree. You're looking for a floury potato, and by that I mean when you have a lovely roast potato, it's crispy on the outside and lovely fluffy in the middle, and that's the texture that floury potatoes have. I've got a pan of cold water here, lots of cold water, so you've got enough to cover the kilo. You drop those in. As you can see, I've cut them quite thick. And then what we're going to do is bring those up to the boil, and then we're going to cook them for about 5 minutes, very similar to how you do a roast potato. You just want to cook the sort of 1 or 2 millimeters in from the outside so they get a nice fluffy edge to them. So put a lid on, bring them to the boil, and then time it for about 5 to 6 minutes, and then you can just test it with the end of a knife to make sure it's slightly cooked on the outside. So they've had 5 minutes. I've already drained the potatoes, and I just want to show you what you're looking for. I'm just steaming them over a little bit of the heat actually. Can you see that when you do that, you're starting to get a bit of the potato off there? They're obviously very hot, so it's hard to show you. But that's where it's 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters cooked. And that allows you to then fluff them in the saucepan. So it's time to give it a jiggle. So put the lid on and bounce them around, and you can start to see they're not falling apart, but you're starting to get little fluffy edges, and those little fluffy edges become the crispy parts. Right, that's done. Then take a non-stick baking tray, and what you want to do is spritz it with low-calorie cooking spray. So put a sort of quite good layer of that, and then let's just evenly shake those out into the pan. I love those little broken bits. They really turn out to be delicious and crispy at the end. There's a few more bits in there, like so. And then what you want to do is just create a few spaces, nooks and crannies, for 4 sausages to go in there. And then in the nooks and crannies, you can put these lovely pork sausages that are from the Slimming World food range, exclusive at Iceland. And you just bury those in there. And we're going to just spritz it a little more with low-calorie cooking spray, and that will give us lovely golden potatoes. Then what you want to do is pop that into a preheated oven of 220 degrees centigrade, 200 fan or gas mark 7, and you put it in there for about 25 minutes or until the sausages and the chips are nice and golden. You might need to turn them a couple of times, but just keep an eye on them and just pop them in the top shelf of the oven so they get a really good source of heat. There we go. Crispy chips and sausages. Just with a bit low-calorie cooking spray, that's what you can create. But the ultimate is for some eggs in there. So I'm just going to move a few spaces around. And just to make sure they don't stick, I'm just going to put a little bit of spray in those sort of holes where I'm going to crack the eggs. And then just crack it on the side of the pan. And try and keep the yolk all together by not breaking it. And then plop that in. Now, if you're vegetarian, you can use vegetarian sausages if you wanted. But what I really like is those lovely flat mushrooms. I would cook them in a pan underneath where you're cooking the chips and put a bit of thyme, salt and pepper, even halves of tomatoes in there, and cook those while you're doing the chips. The reason I don't cook them in the same pan is because it'll create too much steam and your chips won't brown up like they have done here. And then you can bring it together at this stage. So I then dot all the mushrooms and tomatoes in and create the wells for the eggs. There you go. So you crack 4 eggs in, then you put it back into the oven for 5 minutes until they're cooked. You still want the yolk to be lovely and dippy. So you can see that the eggs are lovely and dippy still, that's what you're looking for. And then it's nice to just put a little bit of salt on each egg yolk and a few of the chips, and lots of black pepper. If you wanted to, a little bit of smoked paprika would be delicious on there, or sometimes I like to crush up some coriander seeds and cumin seeds, toast them in a pan and put those on for a little Indian flavour. And then I put parsley on this occasion, but if I was doing the Indian spices, I'd use coriander, and you dot that around. And you serve that with a lovely salad, and then you go in and dip your egg. Oh, that's great. Mmm.